Ancient Egypt was undoubtedly one of the greatest civilizations of all time, with its impressive architectural marvels, remarkable cultural achievements, and scientific advancements. However, like all ancient civilizations, ancient Egypt had its dark side as well. Here are some of the shocking aspects of ancient Egypt's history. Slavery was an integral part of ancient Egyptian society, and it was intertwined with the economy and the social structure. Slaves were considered the property of their owners and had no rights or legal protection. They were treated as expendable resources and were forced to work long hours under harsh conditions. Slaves were used for various tasks, such as working in the fields, building monumental structures, and mining. Their labor was essential for the prosperity of the kingdom, and they played a significant role in the economy. Slaves were not paid for their labor and were often subjected to physical abuse and mistreatment by their owners. They had no means of escape, and their conditions were often deplorable. While slavery was a widespread practice in ancient Egypt, not all slaves were treated equally. Some were employed in skilled professions and enjoyed a higher status, while others were used for menial tasks and were treated as disposable assets. The treatment of slaves varied depending on their role and their owner's personality and values. In conclusion, slavery was a significant part of ancient Egyptian society, and its legacy can still be felt in modern times. Although it was a deplorable practice, it was accepted as a norm in the society of the time. It is essential to acknowledge the atrocities of the past while recognizing the progress made towards creating a more just and equitable world. Human sacrifice was not a common practice in ancient Egypt, and it was not an essential part of their religious beliefs. However, there are documented cases of human sacrifices being performed in ancient Egypt, and it is believed that it was done to appease the gods and ensure the prosperity of the kingdom. The Egyptians believed that the gods needed to be pleased, and they would go to great lengths to ensure that their gods were happy. Human sacrifice was seen as a way to provide the gods with a valuable offering, and it was believed that sacrificing a person would ensure the gods' favor. The victims of human sacrifice were usually prisoners of war or criminals, but sometimes innocent people were also chosen. The method of sacrifice varied, but often involved stabbing or decapitation. The act of sacrifice was considered sacred and was usually performed by a high-ranking priest or a member of the royal family. While human sacrifice was not widespread in ancient Egypt, it is still a troubling part of their history. The practice of human sacrifice has been condemned by modern societies, and it is important to remember that these acts were performed in a different cultural context. We should acknowledge the darker aspects of our history while striving towards creating a more equitable and just world. The mummification of animals was a widespread practice in ancient Egypt, and it was considered an important part of their religious beliefs. The Egyptians believed that animals, particularly those with a connection to their gods, had a special role to play in the afterlife. Therefore, they mummified not only humans but also animals. The animals that were mummified varied, but they included pets, domestic animals, and sacred animals such as cats, dogs, baboons, and bulls. Some of these animals were believed to be incarnations of gods, and they were treated as such. They were given elaborate burials and were provided with offerings, just like their human counterparts. The mummification process for animals was similar to that of humans, and it involved removing the organs, treating the body with natron, and wrapping it in linen. The process was often performed by specialized priests who were trained in the art of mummification. The mummification of animals was an important part of ancient Egyptian culture and religion. It was a way for the Egyptians to honor their gods and ensure that their pets and other animals had a place in the afterlife. While it may seem unusual to us today, it was an accepted part of their society at the time. The practice of mummifying animals continues to fascinate people today and provides us with valuable insights into the beliefs and practices of ancient Egypt. If you have made it this far and are enjoying the video and love to learn about history, please like the video and subscribe for more great history content. Now back to the video. Incestuous marriages were not uncommon in ancient Egypt, particularly among the royal family. The pharaohs believed that marrying close relatives would keep the bloodline pure and ensure that their offspring would have the divine right to rule. The practice of incestuous marriages was not limited to the pharaohs, as it was also common among the nobility and other elites. Despite the taboo nature of incestuous marriages in many modern societies, it was an accepted practice in ancient Egypt. It was viewed as a way to maintain power and control, and it was believed that the gods approved of such unions. However, while the practice was accepted, it did have negative consequences. Inbreeding can lead to genetic disorders, and some members of the royal family were born with physical and mental disabilities as a result of incestuous marriages. The practice of incestuous marriages was eventually phased out in ancient Egypt, likely due to the negative consequences and increased influence of foreign powers. While it was a dark aspect of their history, it is important to view it in the context of the time and understand the reasons behind it. It serves as a reminder that societal norms and values can change over time, and what was once acceptable can become taboo or even illegal in modern times. Despite their impressive advancements in medical knowledge and practice, the ancient Egyptians were not immune to diseases. Leprosy, a chronic bacterial infection that affects the skin and nerves, was particularly common in ancient Egypt, and it is believed that many pharaohs suffered from it. Leprosy was a feared disease that often resulted in severe disfigurement and social stigma, and those who contracted it were often ostracized from their communities. In addition to leprosy, other diseases such as tuberculosis, malaria, and dysentery were also prevalent in ancient Egypt. Malaria, a mosquito-borne illness that causes fever and flu-like symptoms, was especially widespread due to the country's warm climate and proximity to water sources. Dysentery, an inflammatory disorder of the intestines that causes diarrhea and abdominal pain, was also a common ailment. Despite the prevalence of disease, the ancient Egyptians made significant strides in the field of medicine. They were skilled in the use of herbs and natural remedies, and they developed surgical techniques such as trepanation, drilling a hole in the skull, and circumcision. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, an ancient Egyptian medical text dating back to around 1600 BC, is considered one of the oldest known medical documents and provides valuable insight into their medical practices. The ancient Egyptians' knowledge of medicine and diseases played a crucial role in their society, as a healthy population was necessary for the stability and prosperity of the kingdom. Despite the challenges posed by disease, they were able to develop effective treatments and remedies that helped alleviate the suffering of their people. The construction of monumental structures such as the pyramids and temples in ancient Egypt was an incredible feat that required a massive labor force. However, this labor force was not composed entirely of slaves. Instead, the workers were often peasants or laborers who were forced to work on these projects for the greater good of the kingdom. The construction of these structures required a massive amount of labor, and it is estimated that tens of thousands of workers were involved in building the pyramids alone. These workers were forced to work long hours in difficult and often dangerous conditions, with little or no compensation. The work was physically grueling and required a high level of skill and precision, as the structures had to be built with a level of accuracy that is still impressive today. While the use of forced labor is a dark aspect of ancient Egypt's history, it is important to note that these structures are a testament to the ingenuity and skill of the Egyptian people. The pyramids and temples are among the most impressive architectural achievements in history, and they continue to inspire wonder and admiration today. However, it is also important to acknowledge the toll that the construction of these structures took on the workers who were forced to build them. War and conquest were an integral part of ancient Egypt's history and played a crucial role in its rise to power. The Egyptians were a militaristic society, and they maintained a powerful army that was capable of conquering neighboring territories and expanding the kingdom's borders. The Egyptians engaged in numerous military campaigns over the course of their history, and many of these campaigns were focused on acquiring new territories and resources. As the Egyptians expanded their territory, they often enslaved the people they conquered and put them to work in various industries. These slaves were often forced to work long hours in difficult and dangerous conditions, with little or no compensation. The acquisition of new territories and the enslavement of their people allowed the Egyptians to increase their wealth and power, but it also led to significant social and economic inequalities. While war and conquest were a significant part of ancient Egypt's history, they also had negative consequences. The use of military force often led to the destruction of communities and the displacement of people, and it created a culture of violence and aggression that persisted for centuries. It is important to recognize the complex nature of ancient Egypt's history and to acknowledge the role that war and conquest played in shaping its society and culture. It is essential to approach history with a critical and open mind to gain a comprehensive understanding of the past. By recognizing and acknowledging the flaws and darker aspects of ancient Egypt's history, we can have a more accurate and balanced view of this civilization. While we may find their practices disturbing by today's standards, it is crucial to appreciate their advancements and contributions to fields such as medicine, art, and architecture. We can use the lessons learned from their successes and failures to inspire progress and growth in our own society while preserving the beauty and richness of their legacy. That's all for today's video. Did we reveal any points that surprised you about the dark side of ancient Egypt? If you love to expand your knowledge, we have another great video on the left that we think you would be interested in.